Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Gaming News, where we discuss all things within the gaming industry. And today, we are going to talk a little bit about NFTs. We're going to talk about loot boxes, and then we are going to cover a brief situation with Activision Blizzard. That said, I am going to give a trigger warning here because of the particular topic that it is. It is in relation to an allegation from 2017. And because of that topic, I want to make sure that you're aware that when we talk about Activision Blizzard, that is going to potentially have a trigger warning for some viewers. So if you don't want to be triggered by the topic, although we aren't going to cover it for very long, I wanted to make sure that I let you know up front, and I will also make sure to put the timestamps below so that you know exactly when we are arriving at that topic, and you can feel free to skip it if you wish. So, with all of that said, let us get started on the first topic, which is NFTs. Now, we have previously talked about Midnight Society, the gaming company that Dr. Disrespect created a couple of years ago and decided that as a dedicated first-person shooter player that he wanted to create a game that would make gamers proud to be first-person shooter players. And of course, that he decided with his partners that they would be focusing on cryptocurrency, NFTs, Web3 developments for the game, although have also said that none of that is a requirement to play the game. We're still a little bit up in the air about the topic. So what we're going to do is look at a Forbes article here. He has decided he's going to continue with NFTs even though he doesn't like them because of a partnership with Polygon. So let's take a look at the information here, which is that today, I should make you aware that this was published on the 31st. Midnight Society has announced it is working with Polygon Studios to construct a game publishing platform on the Polygon blockchain where players can trade their in-game items freely without incurring high transaction fees or negatively impacting the environment. They also cite a survey they ran of applicants to be in early access for Project Moon that says 97.5% of gamers want to own in-game items outright and be able to collect, trade, and sell them. Given that this is a group of people who signed up for an early access game in order to claim an NFT in the first place, I feel like those numbers are going to be pretty skewed. And I agree with Paul Tassi here in that if your entire basis of the survey comprises of people that you have allowed to be in your early access version of the game, then the results are going to be somewhat biased. They've already put in money or put in digital currency to this game. So, of course, they're going to be very much positive about the cryptocurrency and NFT use in this game, for which we still don't know much information about. But I digress. Dr. Disrespect previously downplayed the focus on NFTs after backlash to the Founders Pass, saying it would be an option and it wasn't a cash grab. You don't have to have NFTs to play, Dr. Disrespect explained, and it doesn't change your experience of the game once it releases. The game will continue to be free to play. You can't buy your way to winning with the NFTs. It won't be pay to win. However, for those of you who do want to get more involved, there are ways to do so via these NFTs. Now, I don't like this as much as anyone else, and Paul Tassi was able to do an interview with ex-Call of Duty leader Robert 402 Bowling, who is now the studio head at Midnight Society, to answer a couple of questions. If you're interested in what those questions were and what kinds of answers were given to those questions, I will be linking the article below so that you can go and take a look at this particular situation and maybe how you feel or don't feel about Dr. Disrespect's new game, for which we don't know anything about. We haven't seen any trailers or graphics or really anything except that you're going to be able to use NFTs to purchase digital items, and that's really all we have to go on. Now, that's not the only bit of information that I have about NFTs this week, and I thought it was kind of interesting that last week we covered OpenSea, who revamped their entire website. And remember that OpenSea is the largest platform to trade and sell digital currencies, NFTs, etc. And interestingly enough, after they do this rebranding to focus more on what's available and what's popular, then we come across information from June the 2nd, which is disgraced OpenSea manager arrested for insider trading. Now, you may remember that Martha Stewart was arrested for insider trading oh so long ago, and it's not uncommon for this to happen in the world of investing, where you get into wanting to know how well a stock is going to do or an investment is going to do, and so you try to get as much information about it as you can and then try to predict the market, and of course you will put your money into that particular investment when you know it's going to go up, because you have information that other people are not privy to so that you can make the most money. And this is not proper. So, the article states former OpenSea product manager Nathan Chastain has been charged with wire fraud and money laundering in connection with an insider trading scheme. Chastain was arrested Wednesday morning in New York City and is expected to be presented in court later today. Chastain was publicly accused of insider trading in September and fired from his position at OpenSea, but today's indictment marks the first criminal charges associated with the scheme. This is massive, because that indictment describes a pattern of 45 token purchases on 11 different occasions, meaning that this wasn't just a one and done situation. This was clearly premeditated, and he broke the law. In each case, Chastain purchased NFTs shortly before they featured on OpenSea's homepage, sometimes only a matter of minutes before. According to prosecutors, Chastain sold the tokens for between 2 and 5 times his purchase price. So, of course, he makes a hefty little sum from being able to know about the boost of these NFTs. But what I find more interesting and egregious is that you're so greedy that you make the purchases minutes before you put it up on the website. It's like, just go ahead and broadcast to the world that this was deliberate. Um, I'm sorry, that's what we call a pattern. That's what we call knowing what you're doing, and this is clearly going to court. He's gonna have a hard time defending himself when there is a paper trail showing that this is what you did. I mean, we talk about criminal masterminds sometimes. This guy is not a criminal mastermind. I'm sorry. This is just ridiculous. And the fact that you thought you could get away with it is kind of insane. But you know what? It's whatever. You made your choice. But let's get back to the article. As part of the indictment, Chastain is required to forfeit any money that can be traced to the proceeds of the scheme. So not only are they taking him to court, but he's going to have to pay all of that money back that is associated and found to be associated. And if there are extra penalties and charges, he's really just screwed himself. The investigation was led by the FBI's National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team, apparently without the involvement of the Securities and Exchange Commission, which typically takes the lead on insider trading cases. The SEC recently doubled its cryptocurrency enforcement staffing, citing an abundance of fraud in the market. No, what gave you that idea that this couldn't possibly be a fraudulent market where people aren't being held accountable? Because as we know from Seth Green's mistakes, that he is going to have a hard time taking his case of stolen NFTs to courts because there isn't really a ton when it comes to legislation. And it's interesting to me that there is a national cryptocurrency enforcement team. I didn't know that this existed. This clearly has to be a new division of the FBI. And when I say new division, I'm assuming at least the last couple of years that this would have come about. Honestly, I just did not realize that that would exist, but it's interesting and it's cool, and I'm glad that people are keeping an eye on the cryptocurrency market because there is potential to move fraudulent money around in some capacity, and it's only a matter of time before people figure out how they're going to try and game the system even more. So again, I will leave this article in the description below so that you can go and take a look. And if you want to look up more information about that, you're more than capable of doing so. I'm not going to stop you. It's an interesting case, and I am very curious to see where both of these situations go with either Dr. Disrespect's Midnight Society video game or to see what the result is of this case of the OpenSea manager who no longer works for the company, to see the results of that case and see if it sets precedent for other cryptocurrency schemes that may be out there. But we will have to wait and see. And with that, we will move on to the next topic. So the next thing I want to discuss is loot boxes. So we go from NFTs, a speculative cryptocurrency that is rife with fraud and issues. And as you can see, people are now going to be indicted if they are working in insider trading deals in order to make bank. But now we move on to loot boxes, which have often been a topic of debate within the video gaming industry. And the story continues with certain companies who want to continue to push loot boxes in their video games and to the mass market, and other countries stating, no, we have already agreed that these are exploitive, manipulative, and we want to get rid of them, and we, in some cases, are going to ban and make these things illegal in video games that are sold in our country. So let's take a look at the first article that I have here. From IGN, the Norwegian Consumer Council has called loot boxes in games manipulative and exploitative in a report backed by consumer groups across Europe. So this isn't news. This is reinforcement, really, in my opinion. But the biggest statement here is the sale and presentation of loot boxes often involve exploiting consumers through predatory mechanisms, fostering addiction, targeting vulnerable consumer groups, and more. And that was something said by Finn Mierstad of the NCC. He is the Director of Digital Policy. And the report itself said it's obvious that loot box systems in games are predatory, manipulative, and exceedingly aggressive, especially because some of these games are targeted at children, which is really part of a big deal here because there are rules and there are laws when it comes to advertising products to children, even if you're looking at certain age ranges, there are policies that have to be followed, laws that have to be adhered to by the advertising companies, by gaming companies, by mass media in general. And this is not surprising that many different countries that make up the EU have decided to do away with loot boxes entirely. Now, Activision Blizzard pulled the sale of Diablo Immortal in Belgium and the Netherlands just yesterday, May 31st, over the two countries' laws that require companies that sell loot boxes to have a gambling license. So here we have Activision Blizzard once again stepping over the line and thinking that laws do not apply to them because they continually break the law no matter what the law says. And having a gambling license would obviously cost money, and it would be money that they viably could pay if they chose to, if they wanted to continue to be successful. And you can debate whether or not they're successful or not at this point. But Diablo Immortal, the fact that not only did it anger all of the fans that it was not what they were expecting, but then to deliberately shoehorn loot boxes into the game to add insult to injury, like, Activision Blizzard, haven't you done enough? Honestly, are you done shooting yourself in the foot? I just don't understand your mentality. But this report is massive. Game Industry Biz also covered this. The Norwegian Consumer Council has released a new report on the ongoing impact of loot boxes on the games industry, backed by 20 consumer groups in 18 European countries. It highlights deceptive design in games, tricks that exploit cognitive or behavioral biases to incentivize spending. Loot boxes are also frequently marketed aggressively by advertising the possible rewards, which is also considered deceptive by the report. 2 case studies of particularly predatory practices are also included in the document. It details how loot boxes are implemented in FIFA 2022 and Raid Shadow Legends and the problems it presents. So the report goes over a number of actions that they would like to implement so that the gaming landscape is better around loot boxes. And those actions include banning the aforementioned deceptive design, denoting all in game purchases in real world currency, not implementing loot boxes in games aimed at minors, more transparency around algorithms that determine the outcome of a purchase, and more enforcement around consumer rights in games. Which I would like to take a step here and say you do have consumer rights. It depends on the country that you're in. It depends on for what products and companies that you can potentially bring a case before the court, but you do have protections. If there is a product that you have received that does not function the way that it's supposed to, you can go take a look at the legislature to see if maybe you have grounds to take them to court for not fulfilling their end of the contract, because there is a contract that happens between a company and a consumer. So to have enforcement for gaming, and especially when it comes to something like a digital purchase or a purchase for something in a digital game, that is important. And this is what we're talking about when it comes to NFTs, don't have legislation yet. There are certain things that are assumed, but it's from physical products often and not necessarily digital products. And it's who is liable at what point and what kind of precedent is going to be set. So go and check out your consumer rights if you feel that maybe something has been violated. This is important when it comes to something like a loot box. So the article continues. Conversations around loot boxes and legality have been ongoing. In 2018, the Belgium Gaming Commission ruled that the implementation of them in games breached multiple gambling laws in the country. Since then, handfuls of publishers, including Nintendo, Blizzard, and Konami, have stopped sales of loot boxes in Belgium, as well as other territories that no longer permit it under law. And last year, a UK report also dubbed loot boxes structurally and psychologically akin to gambling and called for new policies to be put in place, including a clear definition of what a loot box is, full disclosure of the odds when purchasing them, and spending limits. This just goes to show you that the fight with loot boxes and with companies is still ongoing, and the fact that there are more reports coming in talking about the damage that loot boxes can do to gamers, especially unsuspecting gamers, is a massive topic of issue. And hopefully some of these things will be put in place to protect the consumer and to make sure that everyone is happy with what they are receiving and not having the odds play against them. If you want to gamble, there are places to go for gambling. If you want to video game, then play video games, and hopefully they will not include loot boxes. Finally, we are going to talk about Activision Blizzard. And once again, the topic here is not necessarily a good one, and I'm only going to cover it briefly because I only have one article open for this, but I thought it would be interesting to bring to your attention because I have a lot of questions with regard to it, and I'm very interested to see how some of you feel, if you think you can get through this small portion of the video. So, trigger warning starts now. We are going to the article. Activision Blizzard parents of suicide victim asked for dismissal of lawsuit. So, if you remember, in 2017, there was an Activision Blizzard retreat where a woman unfortunately took her own life because of the harassment and abuse that she was receiving from a number of different people that work at the company. As reported by Axios, the parents of Monahan asked a California court to dismiss the entire action of their lawsuit, which was originally filed in March, and they asked this on May 6th. They also requested it be dismissed with prejudice, meaning the same lawsuit cannot be filed again. No public explanation was given for why the suit was pulled. And this is why I want to open a dialogue about this particular issue, is because you're asking to step away from the lawsuit and you're also looking to never bring this lawsuit back to court again. Now, usually when it comes to certain court cases, there is a statute of limitations. And in this case, if they assumed that Activision Blizzard could have done something to prevent the untimely death of the woman, that there would be a certain amount of time that they could bring that claim and they could bring the evidence forward. There are other cases where there are no statute of limitations on them, and that, of course, is determined by state or by country, and you would have to go and take a look at that. But this makes me really wonder if perhaps they have really just put it to rest, or perhaps they've seen the amount of damage that Activision is incurring as a result of the multitude of lawsuits that they're already engaged in, and that perhaps maybe they won't receive any benefit as a result of all of the other situations that Activision Blizzard is dealing with. And I feel awful if that is the reasoning behind dropping their lawsuit, is potentially because of that. It's potentially because maybe they don't feel as though they have enough evidence to show that Blizzard might be actively responsible. Maybe they are going to go after the individual that they believe was the cause of the loss of life. I don't know. These are all assumptions and speculation and thought process. But I really feel for this family, and perhaps maybe they're just done hearing about it. I feel awful either way, and I hope that they are able to move forward. And I know that it's been a long time and that court cases can take an incredible amount of time to get through. But there is no real resolution here. Activision Blizzard has said some things that are also covered in this article, so we will go back. Their lawsuit claimed that Activision Blizzard was liable for preventing the harassment against Monahan, including at a holiday party where sensitive photos were passed around amongst other employees. It also claimed Monahan's direct manager lied to Anaheim police over his relation with her. This manager has since left the company. And here is the point where I am just really upset with Activision Blizzard, because they said the original California lawsuit that referenced her death includes distorted and, in many cases, false descriptions of Blizzard's past. And in response to the parents' lawsuit after it was filed, an Activision Blizzard spokesperson told IGN the company is deeply saddened by the tragic death of Ms. Monahan, who was a valued member of the company. We will address the complaint through the legal process as appropriate, and out of respect for the family, we have no further comment at this time. It just boils my blood that they obviously are not going to take accountability, or they're not even going to talk to the former manager about him blatantly lying to police, if that could be proven, about some of the heinous things that were done leading up to her untimely death. It just bugs the crap out of me that this even happened, and that Activision Blizzard is not going to account for anything having to do with it. And yes, I get it. They're a big company. Why should they worry about such a small allegation when they have these other giant issues to deal with? But they're all part of the same family here, in that all of the allegations are sexual assault and abuse and harassment and mistreatment of their staff. And while there are plenty of people that work for Activision Blizzard who do not have the same story, it still bugs me that this is a rampant topic within the gaming industry, and I can only hope for the best that things will improve after Activision Blizzard's deal with Microsoft goes through, after we start getting rid of the bad apples in the industry. But it's not going to fix everything. It's helping, but it's not going to be a magical fix tomorrow morning. So the final thing that I want to cover in this article is not so much cover, but just a note for people. If you are down in the dumps because of the pandemic, because of the amount of news coming out of some of these game companies, because of in real life situations, whatever it happens to be, please know that the United States does have a 24 hours a day hotline that you can call. It is 1-800-273-8255. Please, if you feel like you are walking down that road, call them. Twitch is affiliated with takethis.org if you need to find someone to talk to about specific issues, whatever they happen to be. Take This has a number of resources that you can go and take a look at, and they have hotlines and websites for multiple different countries that you can go and seek out. You are not alone. You're valuable to the world. Please do not forget that. And this is where I would like to leave gaming news, that if you are struggling, know that there are people out there who are willing to help, who are compassionate, and who will have the time to listen to whatever issues you may be faced with. With that said, thank you so much for being part of the Patreon. We do gaming news videos every week, and this coming week I will also drop another Let's Try video out there. But feel free to follow me on social media. All of the links are listed below. I appreciate every single one of you. And remember, you matter, and you have a fantastic day. And I'll see you next week.